once again for coming and being a part of the meeting today, this morning. We're going to bring on a hard-working brother, a hard-working soldier who is, as Brother Najee was getting ready to introduce him, but I'm going to go ahead and introduce him. Y'all all right?
Yes, sir.
He's a scientist.
Yes, sir.
He is a mathematician.
Yes, sir.
An engineer.
Yes, sir.
He's a chemist. Because whenever you go and you design your own video game, I watched the video game. I was like, wow, okay. When you can do that, then it is something God has placed in you.
Yes, sir.
And it comes out of you. Am I making sense?
Yes, sir.
See, he's not just a scientist, an engineer, and a chemist, but he's also a soldier.
Yes, sir.
In the army of the Lord.
That's right.
He's a student minister. I have to call him that because you can't teach from the Rosh and not be a student minister.
Yes, sir.
So let's bring on our brother, a young, hard-working brother he was doing great works in the nation of Islam. Let's bring him on, Brother Sabeer Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there's no God but Allah, who came to us in the person of Master Sabeer Muhammad. I further bear witness that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is his messenger Messiah. And we thank these two men for their teaching and their guidance and for giving us a divine leader, a divine teacher in our midst, that man, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I'd like to greet each and every one of you in the greeting words of peace. We say it in the Arabic language of Assalamu alaikum. Brothers and sisters, I'm so happy and honored to have the opportunity to speak to you today. And I'm so happy and honored to have the opportunity to have a chance to represent and bear witness to the power of the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad.
That's right.
These teachings are life-changing.
Yes, sir.
These teachings are transformative. These teachings are such that they give us a proper perspective of who we are and the mission that we are set to accomplish. Brothers and sisters, today I'm so happy and honored for our guests and visitors who made your way out to Muhammad's Mosque number 36 today. And so I want to get right into it since we do have a lot to cover. And so today I would like to ask us to open our minds. And as Jesus said in the book of Matthew, the 18th chapter, verily I say unto you, unless ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Whomsoever therefore shall humble himself as of this little child, the same is greatest in the kingdom of heaven. So, brothers and sisters, today we are going to open our minds up and get rid of this world's educational system as our standard for what is true. We're not going to look at the science and technology or the education of this world as a standard or a guideline for what we think is true. If there's some good in it, we'll use it, but we're not going to use that as our base.
That's right.
Today, we are going to ask the question, why did God make devil?
Go ahead.
And see, this question that we're going to ask, so that's the question today. This question that we're going to ask, theologians have often wrestled because they don't know the answer. They're struggling with the answer. Why did God make devil? And before we ask this question, we have to take a proper approach to asking the question. We have to ask it from the right perspective. See, God's not going to dodge the question. God's not going to kind of try and weasel out of the question. God's not going to try and get out of it or try and stall you and say, no, this is not what I meant. No, that's our thing. That's not God's thing.
That's right.
He may not give you the answer when you want it, but God wants you to ask him questions, because by asking questions, you are put on a path to receive an answer. Why did God make devil? In order to ask a question like this, I would ask that each and every one of us, we have to rise above emotion into the thinking of God. First, we have to understand and we have to know that Allah is the God of the earth and in the heavens, and is just and true, and there is no unrighteousness in him.
That's right.
And so it says in the book of Romans in the 8th chapter in the 28th verse, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God and to them who are called according to his purpose. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So, and I want you to be able to see this, so I may step off to the side a bit so that you can see. But, brothers and sisters, look at this. We're asking the questions. Why did God make devil? He's not a wicked God. He's not an unrighteous God. He's not evil, but he does allow and permit evil for a good purpose. Can we agree on that?
Yes, sir.
All praise is due to Allah. See, in the Holy Quran, there's a series of letters. They're called the Muqatta'at, or the mysterious letters. And these letters are a combination of words and things that the theologians and the scholars, they don't know the real meaning of. The mysterious letters are combinations between 1 and 5 Arabic letters, figuring at the beginning of 29 out of the 114 chapters of this book. Just after the Bismillah Islamic phrase, these letters are known as the Fawati, or openers, as they form the opening verse of their respective surahs. One of these letters is Aleph Lamim. And the scholars have kind of gotten close to what they think it means. They say this means I, Allah, am the best knower. So we can stop right there. We can really just close the lecture out, brothers and sisters. And we can say, we can stop right there and say, the reason why God made devil is because he, Allah, is the best knower. He knew when making the devil and when determining that the devil would come into existence that the outcome would be for good.
That's right.
Wow.
We can stop right there, brothers and sisters. That's your answer. Because it says in the Holy Quran, in the 9th surah, in the 30th verse, it says, say. God is asking you to say something.
Right.
Say, nothing will afflict us save that which Allah has ordained
Right.
for us.
Come on. That's
Go ahead.
right.
So yeah, we can really end the lecture there, but let's go a little deeper.
That's
Come on.
right.
Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
So we have that first prerequisite. We know Allah is God. We know that he wants best for us. We know he's the best knower. What's the second prerequisite to asking the question, why did God make devil?
Come on.
We have to rise above emotion into the thinking of God. See, if we think emotionally, we will never understand why God put an opponent, a made man on the planet, making mischief and causing the shedding of blood. So, it says in the 55th chapter of Isaiah, the 8th and 9th verse, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my way or your ways my ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. Can we agree with that?
Yes,
That's
sir.
right. Yes, sir.
So Allah operates on a sphere far above our own. Any actions he makes in his sphere, we are outside of the sphere of understanding, and unless we have patience with God, we won't understand, and we won't wait for understanding to come, because our thoughts are here and his thoughts are up there. It's similar to how if you have a child and their parent says, and the parent may say, you know, just do what I tell you to do, and the child wants to know why.
Right.
And they always ask, why? See, don't get mad at your children. They're curious. They're looking for more information, but you say, I know what you know not.
That's right.
So that's what God is saying here. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, in the self-improvement study guides which we were given, he said in study guide 18 on page 153 to 154, he said, to get into the thinking of God, we must rise above our present level of thought, which emanates from beneath. There is a gulf between the thinking of man and God, and the ways of man and God. the process by which we cross that gulf is called resurrection. The way to think like Allah, God, is to be exposed to his thinking. In our lessons, we are given the actual facts as a beginner and as a start, thinking mathematically rather than emotionally.
Yes, sir.
So let's look at this. So we have two prerequisites. First, we have to question God from the right point of view. And second, we have to rise above emotion into the thinking of God. So you got those prerequisites, brothers and sisters?
Yes, sir.
So whenever you want to ask God a question, have those prerequisites in your mind. And then we can get into asking the question. So let's get into this. The question is, why did God make devil? And I want to explain it in a very mathematical way, because mathematics is an exact science. Mathematics is not close to, mathematics is not coming almost there. No, mathematics is there. Either it's true or it's false.
That's right.
Now look at this, brothers and sisters. We know that Satan, or the devil, is the adversary of God, the opponent, the foe of Almighty God Allah, and the people of God. But why would God make an adversary? Since God is above need of everything, why would he bring into existence an opponent, an opposer? What is his purpose? And so let's explain mathematics. When you start getting into trigonometry, you study sine waves. And in a sine wave, you have hills and you have valleys. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You have increases and you have decreases. You have maximums and minimums. So mathematics is teaching us that in life there is positive and there is negative.
That's right.
And the sine wave changes from positive to negative as time goes on. So at the root of God and his creation, we can see positive and negative.
Yes, sir.
This machine here, they call it an EKG, or an electrocardiogram. When you have someone on an EKG or ECG, it records the electric signal from the heart. When it's a straight line, when there's no hills and valleys, what do they say? They say that person has flatline and they are dead.
Right. Come on.
So if the straight line is equal to death, then the line with hills and valleys is equal to life. So we see in life positive and negative.
Right.
In order to produce a charge in a battery on a circuit, you have to have positive and negative. When you want to hook up a microphone like this one, it's working now. See, when you want to hook up a microphone, you have to put the battery in a certain way, and you're supposed to invert the batteries. You don't put both of them in the same way. You're supposed to put one on the positive side and one on the negative side. So we have positive and negative.
Right.
The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in an article entitled, "God Has Come for the Black Man and Woman," that the universe itself is not yet perfect. But nobody has been wise enough to see the imperfection. The Quran says you look and you search until your eyes roll back in your head, tired to see the imperfection in God. But God saw it in himself.
Wow. Yes,
Inside of the original man is an enemy of self. So if we think of God as the ultimate positive, then inside of God, he saw within himself imperfection. He saw within himself a negative side of self. See, this takes us to understanding and really getting into the thinking of God to understand, how could God have a negative side of self? Because we grow up and we may think that, God we may think that God is, all good, and he is. But Allah allows imperfection and he allows evil for a specific reason. The minister continues in his article. He says, God created all of this, but the Holy Quran says it like this: you can't see any crookedness in his creation. Crookedness would mean imperfection. But since this world is made on the number 6 days, that could be billions of years or trillions of years, but 6 periods of time. The number 6 is a number of incompletion. 6 is a number of dissatisfaction. 6 is a number, and that dissatisfaction has always existed since the beginning. So the dissatisfaction keeps leading man forward until he finds perfection. Now, let's look at this number 6. The Bible teaches us that God saw everything and that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the 6th day. And the Holy Quran says the same, that Allah created everything in 6 periods of time. But he found in his creation positive and negative.
Come on now.
Why 6? The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad also agrees that this universe was created in 6 periods of time. We don't know how long it was. It could have been billions. It could have been trillions of years. So let's look at this number 6. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says in Message to the Black Man that 6 represents incompletion. It represents imperfection and dissatisfaction. Anything that is incomplete, anything that is imperfect is always striving for perfection. That is the nature of this creation. Anything constructed under the number 6 is imperfect and incomplete. I'm coming to something here. And so this universe is created on that number 6. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says in his monumental book, Our Savior Has Arrived, that scientists have learned by study that everything we see that we call universe is not everlasting. It is gradually decaying. The Bible and Holy Quran both verify this decay of the universe, and that one day a wiser God than them all will exist in a new universe. We're going to prove it. Because you may say, oh, you're talking all this. We have to prove it too. So this universe created in 6 periods of time is imperfect. And because of that imperfection, everything that comes out of this universe itself is also imperfect. Is that correct, brothers and sisters?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Let's look at this. The universe itself is imperfect. And anything that's imperfect at some point will decay. At some point, it will die. So the scientists have this hypothesis called the heat death of the universe. And it suggests that the universe will at some point evolve to a state of no thermodynamic free energy and will therefore be unable to sustain processes that increase entropy. And that's basically a law of wasted energy. Let me explain it like this. If you have someone who is running in a track field, well, the body is imperfect. It's not a perfect machine. And so as you run, you're going to expend energy. You can rest and you will gain back that energy. But if you don't get energy from an outside source, like eating food, then eventually the body's going to tire out and you won't be able to run anymore.
Yes, sir.
Well, the universe is the ultimate closed system. So no energy is coming into the universe from somewhere else. So the scientists are thinking that once the energy inside the universe is all used up, because it's not a perfect machine, where will the energy come from? And that's what they call the heat death of the universe.
Yes, sir.
Because the universe is imperfect, because it's not 100% efficient, at some point there will be a death to it, because it's built on that number 6. Let's keep going. Now, when we look at the number 6 and we look at perfection, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in the time when it must be done that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that nothing in the universe is perfectly round.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Look at this. He said nothing in the universe is perfectly round. All of the planets are oblong. All of the stars are oblong. There is no perfectly round fruit, nor are there any heads of the human being that are round.
That's right.
Our heads are shaped like the earth, egg-shaped. oblong. And because the first law of the universe is motion, then anything that is not perfectly round and is set into motion will have a wobble in its motion.
That's right.
Right.
The Smithsonian Magazine writes that a perfect circle cannot exist outside of the realm of mathematics. From subatomic particles to carefully built structures, nothing in the physical world passes the perfect circle test, where every point on the circumference is exactly equidistant from the circle's center. So here we have the photo of a hydrogen atom. It's not a perfect circle. You can't see it. And we have a picture of the earth here. It's not a perfect circle. You can't see it. But we see that in the earth itself, there is not perfection. There is imperfection, where every point will be an equal distance to the center. So if there's nothing in the planet, nothing on earth that is perfect, then we see imperfection exists. Correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's keep going. Imperfection is that number 6. Now look at this. That number 6 is important. In the Bible, in Revelation chapter 13, it says, "Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast.
Right.
For it is the number of a man."
That's right.
And his number is 600, 6.
Right.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
So we look in our society today, it's built on the number 6. Let me prove it to you. Master Sabeer Muhammad, when he came to us, he taught us that the earth weighs 6 septillion tons,
Yes, sir.
a unit followed by 21 zeros. When you die and you're buried in the earth, where do they put the body? They put the body 6 feet under the earth. At what age does a child start school? They start school at 6 years of age.
Come on.
If you look at the Kármán line, which is the line at which is commonly agreed upon where space begins, it's 100 kilometers or 62 miles above sea level. How do we count time today? You put 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. If you look at an equilateral triangle, it's generally represented as 3 angles of 60 degrees. And then if you take that equilateral triangle and multiply it by 2 and then invert it, you get the Star of David, which is the symbol of Judaism and the Jewish faith. If you add up all the numbers of the average roulette wheel, now I know none of us know anything about that, but if you add up all the numbers of the roulette wheel, what do you get? 666. The capital of the United States is Washington, D.C. Well, if you take D.C. and you use Roman numerals, the D equals 500 and the C equals 100. Put the 500 and the 100 together. What do you get? 600. Let me get a drink of water here. Number 6 is a number that we see in our world today, in our civilization. When you look at that number 6, it kind of begins and then it curves in on itself. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
That's right.
And so we are people that if we're born under that number, we are in a process, but something happens that causes us to curve in on ourselves. And we're repeating that motion stuck because of imperfection.
Come on.
So it says count the number of the beast. It's the number of a man, 6, 66. Why does the book of Revelation say, "Behold, I make all things new"? If everything in the universe was perfect, then there would be no need to make something new. But God says he's going to make all things new because imperfection exists, and that imperfection has been giving us a problem for 66 trillion years. All right, brothers and sisters, let's go into it. In our history, we've had 3 to 4 major instances where imperfection has appeared. 66 trillion years ago, as we're taught by the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, one of our scientists who was a black man was trying to get the people to speak the same dialect and was unable to do so. This produced a high level of disappointment in him, which serves as the catalyst for the devil to come out. We're still talking about the question, why did God make devil? As we're taught, he drilled a shaft into the planet, which at that time was called moon, and he filled it with high explosives and set it off. One part flew 12,000 miles, and this part that we're on today fell 36,000 miles until it was caught in a new orbit, and the water from that part fell into this part, and so the earth is now 3/4 water and 1/4 land. And so now you see craters on the moon where it once had water.
Teach, brother.
And so now the moon draws on the water from the earth, equalizing the tides on this part called earth. It was because of that deportation 66 trillion years ago that we have seasons today, because the earth makes 4 dips in and out, just like that sine wave we talked about. So we see positive and negative in the earth's orbit around the sun, and that produces seasons that we have today. There are scientists even today who agree with the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad talking about the origin of our moon. Lynn Edwards of physics.org writes that the problem with their hypothesis being that an object struck the earth and the moon fell off from that. The problem with their hypothesis is that if there was an outside object that struck the earth and created the moon, then shouldn't the moon be composed of some of that object? Some of the materials of that outside object? But they found that it's not. They found that the moon is composed primarily of the same materials that come from the earth.
Come on.
And so there was another hypothesis that agrees with the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but the only reason they rejected that hypothesis is because they couldn't explain what would be strong enough to shoot out a portion of this planet and produce the moon. They couldn't explain where does the energy come from.
Come on.
See, but the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad explained it when he told us the origins of the deportation of the moon. See, brothers and sisters, this is what can happen when we allow disappointment and dissatisfaction to have control over us. This scientist was disappointed. He wanted everyone to speak the same dialect, but he was unable to get them to do so. Well, we become disappointed.
Yes, sir.
We become dissatisfied.
Yes,
You may see your brother with a house. You say, I got a house, but that brother has a nicer house.
Come on.
Or I'm wearing these clothes, but that sister has nicer clothes. Or I see my car, it's got a little scratch in it, but my brother has this car and that car, and he's got a Tesla. And you become disappointed. We may become dissatisfied on a job. We're passed up for a promotion or something. And that dissatisfaction serves as the catalyst for the devil to come out. See, the devil that we have to worry about today is not the devil on the outside. It's the devil that's sitting up inside of you and me. And it's produced because of disappointment, this negative side of self. So the Holy Quran tells us to seek refuge in Allah from the evil of the whisperings of the slinking devil who whispers into the hearts of men. That scientist was disappointed. And the idea came up in his disappointment, I'm going to destroy everything. And so that same idea, that same level of destruction is produced when you allow disappointment to rule over you. We see this in the book of Genesis. And you see the story of Adam and Eve and a serpent that deceives them. God put Adam in the garden. And he said to him, look at all of these trees here. You can eat the fruit of all of these trees. But I have one here in the middle of the garden, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and I don't want you to eat from that tree. Look at this, brothers and sisters. It's funny how you never learn where the serpent came from. So the serpent that deceived Eve, we don't learn why the serpent was in the garden to begin with. The serpent represents that idea that's in you and me today. That if we listen to it, it gives us the knowledge of the positive that positive side and the negative.
That's right.
And then once you learn the knowledge of the negative, then you have a choice to make. Are you going to go with the positive, or are you going to succumb to the negative side of self?
Yes, sir.
Moses was telling the people about this. Why? Because Moses was a liberator. Moses was one who was trying to get the people to come away from that negative side of self that God found out about. He was trying to get the people to come to a new path. And today, brothers and sisters, I'm so happy to say that we have one like Moses who's trying to get us to come away from that negative side of self. So we say in our prayer, I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed Satan.
Yes, sir. Come on.
That imperfect side of self is within you and me today. And that's what we need to seek Allah's refuge from.
Right.
Let's continue. Right. So we have the deportation of the moon. 66 trillion years ago, one instance of imperfection. When God created the universe, I'm going to reiterate, he found imperfection, and that imperfection produces a wobble in motion.
Yes, sir.
So as time goes on, we start to see the wobble manifesting itself when disappointment comes up.
Come on.
And that's one instance, and it produced the moon that you see out here today. Here's another one. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us in Message to the Black Man. He writes that the origin of our kinky hair came from one of our dissatisfied scientists 50,000 years ago, who wanted to make all of us tough and hard in order to endure the life of the jungles of East Asia or Africa, and to overcome the beast there. But he failed to get the others to agree with him. He took his family and moved into the jungle to prove to us that we could live there and conquer the wild beasts, and we have.
Yes, sir.
So we have a scientist here, and he wanted to make the black man into one who could conquer the jungle life. He wanted to make us into one who, when we're faced with a lion or a tiger, you see a lion and tiger today, you get scared.
Yes, sir.
But he wanted to make us conquerors over jungle life on a physical level.
Come on.
And the other scientists disagreed with him. And so he was exiled to a place, and because of disappointment and dissatisfaction, he said, I'm going to make my people. And that's how you see the origin of our kinky hair. I don't have a lot of it right now, but you see the origin of our kinky hair, our thick lips, our broad nose.
Right.
And now you look at your broad nose and you're trying to lighten up your skin. You're trying to thin up your nose and get rid of these thick lips here because you hate yourself. But all of that was produced because of disappointment, because of dissatisfaction, because of imperfection. And when we allow that disappointment, that dissatisfaction to have rule over us, then a devil is born.
That's right. Go ahead.
Why did God make devil?
That's right.
I'm trying to get you to see, brothers and sisters, that the devil has existed on our planet long, long, long before the white man ever came onto our planet. God, when he created the universe, he saw this coming. He saw all of this because of imperfection.
That's right.
And so he wanted to solve a problem. He wanted to get rid of the problem, and he had to think of a solution to destroy that negative side of self. See, as long as it was controlled by the positive, then there was no problem. You would not see the negative come out. So in our prayer, we put the right hand over the left, and we put it over the navel. Because the navel represents the negative side of self. It starts when you eat food. Right here, you have your stomach.
That's right.
And then the more food you eat, and the type of food you eat, it becomes an addiction, and you start getting bigger and bigger. See, when I went to college, I started eating a lot of processed foods. And then those processed foods, naturally, it caused a change in the body that we're still trying to correct today. I was doing research, and it says sometimes it takes 3 times the amount to lose weight than it does to gain weight. So that negative side of self manifested itself. So the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he taught us eat 1 meal a day. And by experimentation, we see, okay, this is why he said that.
That's right.
And by experimentation, I'm seeing now, okay, this is what I need to do to correct at a certain point disappointment, dissatisfaction, imperfection manifested itself in my life.
Go ahead, bro.
And this is what I need to do to correct that. I'm sure each and one of you have stories like that too.
Go ahead.
Who can fix the problem? Who can solve the problem? Who can get rid of this imperfection that's been giving us a problem for 66 trillion years?
Yes,
the only way that God can fix imperfection in the universe, he first has to start with manifesting the problem.
That's right.
And then giving us a choice between the positive and the negative.
All right.
See, when you look, you don't go to a doctor and he just starts operating on you.
That's right.
You look at him like he's crazy. But what does the doctor do first? He shows you what the problem is. You need a diagnosis.
Go ahead.
And then he puts you on a program sometimes where you have a prescription.
All right.
And the more you take that prescription, it doesn't happen immediately, but over a determined period of time,
Yes, sir.
you can get from the sick to the healthy.
Right.
Right.
So it asks the question in the Bible, who can heal the sin-sick soul? God has to manifest what was hidden deep inside of the original man.
Yes, sir.
He has to show you this is what is in you and then give you a program, a prescription to get rid of it, to fix it.
Yes, sir.
So we're taught by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad about how the original man writes history. We're getting into this third instance of imperfection. We're taught that the black man doesn't write history after we complete it. We write history in advance and then walk into it. It's not magic. Don't think that we're believing in like some aliens out in outer space. It's just a high degree of science. Let me prove it to you. Now remember, I asked this at the beginning, let's throw away that white man's mind.
That's right.
Throw away that idea that you learned in school, George Washington never told a lie. Throw all of that away for just 1 minute and open your mind to the possibility that just maybe a black man came to North America with a knowledge that's greater than this world.
Go ahead, bro.
I mean, come on, we got to be honest.
Yes, sir.
Did y'all see, let me go a little further. Did y'all see the DART mission that NASA launched today? That mission where they sent a spacecraft from Earth to an area in space and they had it intentionally crash into an asteroid to redirect the path of the asteroid.
Yes, sir.
How did they do that? How did they get it to collide? How did they know where the asteroid was going to be? Using mathematics,
Come on.
using science.
Yes,
They
sir.
predicted the future, made a plan, and walked
Come
right
on.
into it.
Yeah.
That's right.
All praises due to Allah. We're going to take our time here today
That's
Take your
right. Go
time.
ahead.
because what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us is not false. It's not fantasy.
That's
It's not
right.
magic. It's not spookism.
Right.
That's right.
It's not voodoo.
That's right.
This is absolute truth. And when we understand and get the big picture, then we can answer the question, why did God make devil? The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he taught us that we make such history once every 25,000 years. When such history is written, it is done by 24 of our scientists. One acts as judge or God for the others, and 23 actually do the work of getting up the future of the nation, and all is put into one book. And at intervals where such and such part or portion will come to pass, that people will be given that part of the book through one among that people from one of the 12 major scientists. As it is then called a scripture, which actually means script or of writing or something original or book. This group of 24 scientists is talked about in the Bible as the 24 elders.
Yes, sir.
Or in the Holy Quran, they're called the exalted assembly. Now, like I said, don't think this is fantasy. Don't think of this as spookism. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad explained it like this. He said, if I have one pin here, now multiply this one pin, can you see two?
Yes, sir.
Now, can you see 3?
Yes, sir.
Now, can you see 4?
Yes, sir.
And I was talking to my brother a couple of days ago, and we were thinking about these scientists and how they write the history of the black man in advance. See, a lot of times we think that unless we see something that is not real or not true. But how many of us have been to Egypt? Can I see by a show of hands? None of us here have been to Egypt, correct? Unless someone's just not telling me. But you haven't been to Egypt, but you know it exists.
Come on.
Why? You haven't been to all of these places all over the world, but if I ask you about them, you know they exist.
Right.
How? You haven't been there, but your mind has traveled there through the use of the internet, through the use of books, through the use of acquiring knowledge. You've traveled to these places.
Yes,
Go ahead.
sir.
See, if any of us have used Google Earth, you can now walk in these places in a virtual environment.
Yes,
Come
sir.
on.
And then if you mix it with virtual reality technology that they have, you'll think you're actually there. Not quite, but that's the technology.
Yes, sir.
So that's how the black man writes history. He doesn't just write it after he does it. He writes it and then walks into it. Now let's get into this. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that in the year 1 of this 25,000 year cycle, they saw a man being born in the year 8,400, which is equivalent to 4,600 BC using the Gregorian calendar. And this man would be born, as Brother Najim said, out of a 30% dissatisfaction that would exist at the time of his birth. And he would be born and be one born to bring about a significant change. He would be a scientist, and he would be one who understood that there is a defect in the original man. He would study the life germ of the original man and make a new people that would rule the original man for a period of 6,000 years through a system of tricks and lies. His name was Yaqub, or as the Bible calls him, Jacob, who wrestled with the angel and prevailed. And his name was changed from Jacob to Israel. So look at this. So it was determined that someone would be born in the year 8,400. And these two calendars are equal. You can use the Gregorian calendar if you like, but this is the calendar the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that we use before the Gregorian calendar ever existed.
Yes, sir.
They found out that this man would be born in the year 8,400. And he would make a people who would rule the original man from the 9,000 year, or 4,086, to the 15,000 year, or 1914.
Yes, sir.
You can take it or let it alone. His name was Yaqub. One day when he was 6 years old, he was playing with 2 pieces of steel. And he noticed the magnetic power of the steel attracting the other. He looked up at his uncle and said, "Uncle, when I get to be an old man, I'm gonna make a people who shall rule you." His uncle said, "What will you make? Something to make mischief and cause bloodshed in the land?" Yaqub said, "Nevertheless, Uncle, I know that which you do not know."
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Now, some of
that's
you are
right.
parents in here.
Come on now.
Some of you have nephews
Youngest
or nieces. Have you ever thought and looked at your children at 6 years old playing with magnets? See, that's the positive and the negative.
Come on.
And they saw that the positive and the negative are attracted to one another, and the law for which opposites attract was formed. And you look at your children and they say, "I'm going to do this," and you say, "Maybe that's not going to happen. What are you going to do?" And then they say, "I know what you know not." Imagine you had a child like that. What would you be thinking? But that's how Yaqub's uncle was. So the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that it was at that moment, at 6 years old, that number 6 again, where Yaqub first came into the knowledge of who he was. Yaqub was responsible for the making of the white man.
Yes, sir.
And I should say making instead of creation. So that should say making there because there's a difference between
Yes, sir,
making
brother.
and creating.
That's right.
That's another lecture for another time. So let's look at this. I want to stop for a moment and explain that Yaqub was not an evil scientist.
Come on.
He was not a wicked man. Any of us, we think, okay, well, he was responsible for the making of the white man, then he must be evil. But he was not. He was not a wicked man. He was not an evil scientist. He was one of the black nation.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
Well, why isn't he that? He said, I know that which you do not know. This same statement is written in the Holy Quran when God is speaking to the angels. It says in Surah 2, verse 30, and when thy Lord said to the angels, I'm going to place a ruler in the earth, they said, wilt thou place in it such as to make mischief in it and shed blood? And we celebrate thy praise and extol thy holiness. And God said, surely I know what you know not.
Yes, sir.
So what I'm getting at is that Yaqub was one born with a determined idea.
Yes, sir.
How was it determined? The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in the time of what must be done, I went too far. He said in the time of, we'll get back to that in a minute, that the word determine is the past participle of the verb to determine. Then that is not an action that starts with the person born. That idea starts with the determination. That Yaqub would be born with that idea was already determined by God.
Yes, sir.
And when you are born with a determined idea, the force of the determination is what drives you to fulfill the purpose of your birth. Yaqub was born with a determined idea, so he was driven by the force of that determination. Have you ever had an idea, black man and woman, and you thought about it so much and it was so strong that you just felt like you had to do it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's a determined idea. Where did the idea come from? Someone may say something and it's so in line with your nature that you're like, that's on point. And you say, let's make this a reality. And so you dedicate your life to a study to fulfill a determined idea. Look at this. Let me try and find where I was. Right around here. So he said, I know what you know not. That's the word determination. When we look at that word determination, it means to settle, to decide upon, to state definitely, to fix the bounds of, to limit in time or extent, to come to a firm decision or a definite intention. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that Yaqub discovered in his studies at 6 years old his purpose, and by the time he was 18, he had finished all the schools of his day. He was studying the life germ of the original man when he saw in it two germs, one black and one brown.
Yeah.
He said if he could successfully separate the one from the other, then he could graft the brown germ into its last stage, which would be white. So he went from black to brown to red to yellow to white. And this process took 600 years. And so what he set out to do, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that when he discovered that the brown germ was the weaker of the black germ, he wanted to graft them out to produce white. So this new idea put him to work finding the necessary converts to begin grafting this new race of people. He was seen preaching in the streets of Mecca, making converts. He made such impressions on the people that many began following him. He began by teaching Islam with promises of luxury to those who would believe and follow him. Mr. Yaqub began preaching among the dissatisfied, and he gathered 59,999 followers. At this time, they started teaching, and there were arrests made. And eventually, Yaqub himself was arrested, but when the people found out that this was a man born to do what he was doing, then they decided to exile these people to the Aegean Sea, or an island in the Aegean Sea called Pilan or Patmos, and there they would be allowed to make their people. This is Yaqub and the history of the making of the Caucasian race. And it's spoken about in the Bible in the book of Genesis when it says, "Let us make man after our likeness, and let him have dominion over the fish of the sea and the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." And now when we look at the Caucasian today, what do we see? That same idea of dominion, that same idea of rule exists in them today.
That's right.
Whenever we start getting out of line, and I know you saw it, but that's what we start getting. Whenever we start getting out of line, we see them try and pull the chain back. As though you are the property or the ownership of them.
Right.
And this is what they call the buck breaking of the black man. Look at this. So recently we have the example of Kyrie Irving and Ye. What did they do? Kyrie Irving, he just saw a video. He saw a movie. And he shared it. And look at how they came out against him. And look at how they're trying to buck break the black man. So now you think subconsciously that these people are bad. They're anti-Semitic. They're hypocritical. They're evil in some way. You may not even know it, but the more you see people repeating, he said this or he did that, then subconsciously you start thinking about them in a negative light. That's what the enemy does when he tries to buck break the black man.
Yes, sir.
And woman. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in his response that this is the day of judgment and justice. These men do not want to be against you. These men are grateful. You brought them out of college and high school and gave them a contract. You gave them a contract because you saw their talent. Haven't they made money for you all? So now you sign them up. And then Adidas comes by and Nike comes by and gives them a lot of money that they don't see. You have them on a leash. And whenever someone like Kyrie or Ye rise up and you don't like it, you pull the chain. So we run out and dog our own brother because he did something for principle. This is in the nature of the Caucasian, and it's in the nature in which he was born. But I'm here to tell you today that that same nature is in you and me if we submit to the negative side of self.
Yes,
so
sir.
why did God make devil? He had to make a manifestation of what was in you and me.
Yes,
Go
sir.
ahead,
Come
go
on.
ahead.
This buck breaking is a tactic of Satan. It's in his nature because, as it says in the Bible, he was born to exercise power and dominion over the original man. They'll call you an anti-Semite. They'll call you homophobic. They'll call you a hater, a wild-eyed radical, because you're getting out of line with the system of rule that they were determined to rule with.
Right.
Look at it. Look at this negative side of self made flesh. Look at the caricatures they make out of black people today.
That's right.
Recently, I had an opportunity to go to the International Civil Rights Museum in Greensboro, and that's where those 4 A&T students started the sit-ins. And they were talking about the caricatures that they make out of black people. See, brothers and sisters, we make a serious mistake if we don't show this to our children.
That's right.
We make a serious mistake if we don't learn about this, not what they were doing in past, but what they're still doing today. This is the nature of the negative side of self. So you have Little Black Sambo, you have Jim Crow, you have the lynchings going on today, and this is the attitude. It looks like they're at a theme park or something. And then even today they have Agent Orange, which was used in Vietnam, or bombs full of depleted uranium. Look at the pictures of the side effects of depleted uranium bombing.
Yes, sir.
You have the Ku Klux Klan. All of this same mindset exists today.
Yes, sir.
And this same negative side of self, that same potential is in you and me if we don't have control over the negative side of self.
Yes, sir.
Our people need to know this. It's not
Yes,
ancient
sir.
history.
Right.
They need to know about Mike Brown, George Floyd, Tamir Rice, Sandra Bland, Eric Garner, and others. We have to talk to them about what this Satan is doing, because it's this Satan that's here to teach us a very valuable and very important lesson. So even with that, even with the death and the destruction that have followed this people, still we have to know where to put the blame.
Come on.
Who's responsible for this? Now this is the part where you have to rise above emotion. The ultimate responsibility for the actions of the Caucasian lies with who? God. In 1974, during Savior's Day, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in his final message to us, he said, "We didn't raise you to be mockers of anyone, because the white man could easily tell us, I didn't make myself.
That's right.
You made me."
Come on.
So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad asked the question, who's responsible, the potter or the clay?
Yes, sir.
All of this potential for destruction and death is sitting right up inside of you and me.
That's right.
So that negative side of self is in the mosque. It's in the church.
That's right.
It's in the synagogue.
Go ahead.
It's in your homes. It's in the
That's
street
right.
today, just waiting for an opportunity to show itself. And when you get
That's right.
disappointed, when you
Yes.
get dissatisfied,
Right.
that's the catalyst. And if
Right.
you don't control it,
Right.
the negative side comes up here, and then you see all these
brother.
you see all this shedding of blood going on. You wonder why road rage happens
Come
today.
on.
It looks like people don't even have control over their emotions because they've let Satan at the driver's seat
Right.
of their minds.
Right.
It's not some little devil sitting up inside of you.
Right.
No, that's you, but that's
Yeah.
you showing the imperfection of your creation
Come on.
and putting the devil at the head instead of God.
Come on and teach, brother.
So God did an examination. God saw this negative side of self giving us a problem. God saw us stumbling, and he decided, I'm going to fix it. How is he going to fix it? Just like a doctor would. He shows you the manifestation of yourself.
Yes, sir.
And then he gives you a choice between positive and negative. We have to thank Allah for this.
Yes, sir.
So why did God make devil? I hope you're coming into a better understanding of the reason why Allah said, I know what you know not. The end result of the white man's being made and coming into our planet will be good. The Holy Quran says in the 50th surah, in the 16th verse, it says, and certainly we created man, and we know what his mind suggests to him. And we are nearer to him than his life vein or his jugular vein. And then it says, when the two receivers receive, sitting on the right and on the left. Our dear Mother Tainetta Muhammad, in opening a lecture entitled The Origin of Disappointment, she said that these two receivers are like the left and the right ear. And then it says in the scriptures, he utters not a word, but by him is a watcher at hand. Allah knows not only what we do, but he knows our thoughts. And I remember I was listening to a lecture and a sister asked the minister a question, how can we get rid of negative thoughts? Because I'm sure each and every one of us, we want to be right, but every time we think something right, do you ever have that negative thought that comes up and you're like, where did that come from? See, that negative thought comes from the negative side of self. Allah knows that. Not only what you say, even if you utter not a word, he knows the negative thought, and he saw all the negative thoughts of the people.
Yes, sir.
So when the story of Noah is talking about how every imagination of the people was continually on evil.
Yes, sir.
So God has to fix this. First, he makes a man to show you the extent of what the negative side of self can produce. And then he gives you a choice. Are you going to choose positive or are you going to choose negative?
Go ahead.
If you choose positive, then you're set on a prescription to get rid of the negative side of self, get rid of the imperfection, and be made new.
Right.
So the scriptures say in the book of Isaiah, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder, and his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, and of the increase of his government of peace, there will be no end. So if there will be no end to this one's government, that means that he's going to make it perfect, without imperfection. No more do we see the sine wave up and down, progress and then destruction of progress. He's going to make it so that we're on an exponential curve, continually rising and rising and rising. This one was born February 26, 1877.
That's right.
And just as Yaqub, the father of this world, understood his future when he was 6 years old, this one saw his future when he was 6 years old. He saw him pushing the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and the DuPonts into a lake of fire. He saw himself not dealing with the dumb devil, but dealing with Satan himself.
Yes, sir.
He had a black father and a white mother, and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said it was so he could deal justice to both people.
Yes, sir.
The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in part 28 of The Time of What Must Be Done, that when Master Sabeer Muhammad started growing in wisdom, he saw the mind of the originator and how the idea of universe first came up in his mind. And by knowing how the idea of universe came up in his mind, then he, Master Sabeer Muhammad, could say, fulfilling the desire of the originator, behold, I make all things new. And so Master Sabeer Muhammad comes to North America, and he finds the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he puts him on a course to be made new. And the most honorable Elijah Muhammad says, I am like Yaqub in reverse.
Come on. Yes, sir.
See, Elijah Muhammad, like Yaqub started by teaching Islam with promises of luxury. Elijah Muhammad, he started by preaching Islam, but he didn't start with lies and tricks. No, he taught a new Islam.
Come on.
And the luxury, the money, the good homes, the friendship in all walks of life comes when you submit to a new way to be made new.
Yes, sir.
The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught separation. He said in point number 4 that we want our people in America whose parents or grandparents were descendants of slaves to be allowed to establish a separate state or territory of their own. He was seen preaching in the streets of Detroit, Michigan, in the streets of Chicago, Illinois, and in many other places making converts.
Yes, sir.
Look at this. Elijah Muhammad, Yaqub in reverse. And now, under the guidance of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, we see that we are being made new, given the choice between positive and negative.
Yes, sir.
The minister said during his Savior's Day 2017 address, in closing, that he said, so when I speak, listen, because you will then be in the valley of decision. And you've got to make a decision to save your life.
Yes, sir.
Because you are living in the breakup of America and the breakup of the white man's world. Take it or let it alone. He taught a lecture called The Criterion. Well, when you look at a criterion, it's something that distinguishes between one thing or another.
Yes, sir.
And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is like a criterion between the negative side of self and the positive. So now we have gotten the diagnosis. We know why God made devil. We know that it's for a reason so that we can see the negative side of self made manifest, and now we have to choose between good or evil. Moving right up inside of us. Or are we going to accept a new way and be made whole? Get rid of the negative thoughts. Get rid of the hatred of one another. Get rid of that spirit that produces destruction in our community. Are we going to do that?
Come on,
or are we going to fall with this enemy? And this world is 100% falling.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
So God says, behold, I make all things new.
Come on now.
In answer to his question, brothers and sisters, in our lessons it asks the question, why did God make devil? And the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad answers, he says, to show forth his power.
Yes, sir.
That he is all wise and righteous.
Yes.
That he can make a devil which is weak and wicked and give the devil power to rule the earth for 6,000 years, then destroy the devil in one day without falling victim to the devil's civilization. Otherwise, to show and prove that Allah is the God, always has been, and always will be. All praises due to Allah. I ask you, brothers and sisters, in your life, are you going to say God has always been God? He always was. He always will be. Time for us to get rid of that negative side of self.
Yes,
thank you for listening as I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.